You know that feeling when you're stuck on a subway, just staring into the dark tunnel, wondering what's actually going on? Well, it turns out there's this invisible system running the whole show, a technology of signals and switches that's over a century old. And right now, that system is going through one of the most complex, most expensive upgrades in the history of public transit. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and see what's really happening. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the old tech and why it's holding your commute hostage. Then, we'll dive into the digital upgrade, a little something called CBTC. We'll unpack the massive challenge of actually installing it, check out the lessons learned from cities that have already been through the fire, and finally, lay out a blueprint for the future of transit. So, before we can talk about where we're headed, we've really got to understand where we are right now. And for most subway systems, that means looking at technology that's been around since your great-grandparents were kids. I mean, think about it for a second. It's the most basic question of rail safety, right? You've got these massive multi-ton steel boxes hurtling through these tight, dark tunnels. How on earth do they not slam into each other all the time? Well, for more than 100 years, the answer has been a system called fixed block. Just imagine the track is chopped up into these invisible sections, or blocks. The rule is simple. Only one train is allowed in a block at any given time. Period. A train can't move forward until the train ahead of it is completely out of the next block. It's basically a system of traffic lights. Now, it's been reliable, for sure, but man, is it inefficient. It creates these huge empty buffer zones between trains, which puts a hard physical limit on how many trains you can actually run. And this is where it gets really serious. This slide shows the tragic cost when that old system's limits are pushed too far, usually because of human error. Just look at this data from New York. Time and time again, accidents happened because an operator failed to follow a signal. The real wake-up call was the 1991 derailment at 14th Street. 5 people lost their lives. And the really painful part? The safety system actually did trip the brakes, but because of the way the fixed block system is designed, it was just too late to slow the train down enough. It was a clear, tragic signal that a much smarter system was desperately needed. Okay, so let's get to the solution. How do you build a safer, more efficient system? Well, if the old system is just a series of dumb traffic lights, the new one is more like giving every single train a super smart brain and its own high-precision GPS. And that brings us to this, Communications-Based Train Control, or CBTC. The keywords here are right in the name, continuous communication. Instead of just knowing which big block a train is in, the central system knows the precise location, the exact speed, and the direction of every single train, all the time, down to the inch. The trains are constantly talking to equipment on the track, and the track is constantly talking back. So what does all that digital chatter get you? Well, it unlocks a whole suite of amazing benefits. Safety is number one. The system is always watching, continuously enforcing the speed limit. That kind of accident from 1991, it becomes virtually impossible. But here's the real game changer. You get a massive boost in capacity. By replacing those huge fixed blocks with tiny moving digital bubbles around each train, you can run them much, much closer together. That means more trains per hour and less time waiting on the platform for you. The whole system just gets smarter. And this is how it works. It's actually pretty cool. Onboard sensors called tachometers count the wheel rotations. But what if the wheels slip on a wet track? Well, Doppler radar acts as a backup to catch that. All this data gets fed into an onboard computer that calculates the train's exact position, and it's constantly double-checking its work against little transponders on the track just to make sure it's perfect. It's this beautiful, redundant, self-correcting loop of information. Now, to make all that magic happen, every single train car has to be fitted with this whole suite of sophisticated electronics. You're looking at what's called the train-borne equipment. The radio, the computers, the antennas, all of it. You're essentially giving each train its own digital brain. And you can probably guess that installing this on hundreds or even thousands of trains is a huge piece of the puzzle. Which brings us to the hardest part of all. Installing this kind of technology isn't like updating an app on your phone. Not even close. It's like trying to perform open heart surgery on a patient while they're running a marathon. The subway system has to keep moving millions of people every single day. You can't just shut it down. This slide really breaks down the challenge perfectly. You've got 2 basic types of projects. A greenfield project is when you're building a brand new line from scratch. It's a clean slate, relatively straightforward. But then you've got a brownfield project.
That's when you have to retrofit an existing, often ancient 24/7 system. And that is a completely different beast. All the work, installing thousands of devices, running miles of new cable, testing every little thing, it all has to be done in those few precious hours overnight when service is lighter.
And of course, that complexity drives the cost way, way up. The price of the core technology is just the beginning. The real budget killers are all the site-specific factors. Things like, does your entire fleet of trains need to be pulled out of service and retrofitted? Are your 100-year-old equipment rooms even compatible with modern tech? And what about the interlockings, those incredibly complex webs of switches? Upgrading them is a massive project all on its own. It's these variables that can add hundreds of millions to the final bill. So, with all these challenges, how have cities actually managed to pull this off? Well, let's look at some of the hard-won lessons from the pioneers who have navigated these incredibly complex projects and often learned things the hard way. We'll start in New York. The Canarsie Line, which you probably know as the L train, was basically the guinea pig. It was the first heavy rail line in the entire country to get CBTC, all the way back in 2006. And the results were dramatic. Before the upgrade, the line could handle maybe 20 trains an hour. After, 26 trains. That's a nearly 30% increase in capacity, a total game changer for commuters. They learned an incredible amount on this one. And when you combine New York's experience with what happened in other cities, like San Francisco, a clear playbook starts to emerge. San Francisco learned you should never, ever roll out a new signal system, new train cars, and new tracks all at the same time. It's a troubleshooting nightmare. And New York proved you absolutely have to involve everyone. Train operators, maintenance crews, schedulers, from day one. This isn't just an engineering project, it's a complete operational and cultural shift for the entire agency. This quote from the Federal Transit Administration really says it all. After studying these projects in depth, their main conclusion was basically a giant warning sign to every other city. Do not underestimate how hard this is. This is hands down one of the most challenging infrastructure projects a city can take on. So, with all these lessons learned, all this hard-earned experience, what does the path forward look like? How do you do this right? Well, it turns out there's a blueprint for success. The single biggest recommendation that comes out of all this is to adopt what's called a systems engineering approach. Now, I know that sounds super technical, but the idea is actually simple. You have to look at the entire problem, not just one piece of it. It's an approach that pulls every single group together, operations, maintenance, finance, you name it, into one structured process. And this is what that approach looks like in practice. You start with a clear vision. What are we trying to accomplish? More capacity, better reliability. Then you get everyone in a room together from the very start. You define every single requirement before anyone starts designing anything. And then you manage the whole process meticulously to make sure the final system actually delivers on what you promised. It is, quite simply, a roadmap to avoid chaos.
And you've got to remember, this isn't happening in a vacuum. Cities all over the world are getting bigger and denser. The demand for public transit that's efficient, reliable, and sustainable has never been higher. CBTC is one of the key technologies that makes the smart, automated cities of the future even possible.
And hey, if you need more proof, just follow the money. The global market for this technology is projected to nearly double in just 8 years, hitting over $15 billion. That tells you there's a clear global consensus. This is essential technology for bringing our cities into the 21st century. So the next time you're on a train, think about that invisible system working all around you. The old fixed blocks and the century-old logic are slowly but surely being replaced by a digital nervous system. It's a disruptive, expensive, and incredibly complex process, but it's absolutely essential. Which leaves us with one final thought. Your city's transit is getting older every single day. Is it ready for its digital upgrade?